You know, because we run a pretty loose ship here.
Hey, Michael.
Yeah.
I'm going to be on the
welcome.
Don't Unfriend Me show at some point.
We're
Don't
live.
Unfriend Me show.
Mhm.
We'll get to it in a minute. We got to do an intro. Ladies and
Okay.
gentlemen, thank you for joining us once again this week for the weekly roundtable. I am one of your co-hosts, Frank Fat Shady Johnson. Yes, I am the inventor of heavier than air helium. My co-host, Michael Martian, co-founder of the Liberty First Foundation, and Michael Vasquez, the dragon of the Southern Tier, New York's only true independent journalist who's now, from what I understand, living on one side of the city where you have to pay a toll to travel to. We'll get to that and many more topics this evening on tonight's exciting show. Peter Sohm is waiting in the wings. He may or may not decide to stop in this evening and spread some of his cheer and lovable antics. And we may have a couple other surprise guests pop in later on tonight. Who knows? I don't. I just work here. Guys, I'm putting on a brave show. I had spinal injections today and my transmission went bad. So I'm really, really trying to hold it together.
Well, we'll see how long that lasts for.
Yeah.
But no, frazzled myself. I'm working on a 9/11 project that I have coming up.
Yeah.
So that's going to be interesting. And then as soon as I finish that, I have to put something together for Sunday because today, September 1st, is the 2-year anniversary of Joe Biden giving what I consider the greatest lie to the American people. On September 1st, 2021, Joe Biden appeared before the American people and said there are 98 Americans that he abandoned in Afghanistan. But don't worry, the Biden-Harris administration will get them home. The next 2 days later, September 3rd, a correction came out from the Department of State and said, no, it's between 100 and 200 people. Within a month, that number had changed again. 2 months later, it changed again. And by December, it had changed 4 times. In fact, January of 2022 was the last time we got an official number from the Biden-Harris administration. At that point, over 600 Americans had returned back to the United States without the help of the Biden-Harris administration. And there was somewhere estimated to be around 200 Americans still in Afghanistan after being abandoned. Well, it was in February of 2022 that we found out the actual number is 5,000. He knew that as of August 1st, 2021, left them anyway, lied to the American people knowingly. And we now know, as of 2 months ago, from the CIA, that there are at least 200 Americans who are being tortured in Afghanistan by the ISIS and Al-Qaeda at this moment. And Joe Biden still won't mention their names. He won't talk about them. The mainstream news media forgot they exist. I didn't. 2 years to the day, I will never forget about those people.
No.
Well, 5,000 plus people is just a small price to pay when you're trying to save your presidency, when you're trying to, continue your cover up of corruption, and when you're spending every waking moment trying to facilitate the arrest and conviction of your political opponents. That's just a small price. It's an acceptable liability, for this administration. It's a loss they can absorb.
That's what they're wanting.
Collateral damage.
Yeah, but it's so frustrating because what did they say? If you do not remember history, you are doomed to repeat it. In 2022, in the Ukraine, it was February 2022, Joe Biden went on NBC with Lester Holt and told the American people that he would not save even one American out of the 10,000 that were in the Ukraine that he could have gotten before the war started, including children. And he said, no, they'll figure out their own way home. Never got them. 10,000. 2023, 3 months ago, in March, end of March, beginning of April, in the Sudan, 15,000 Americans were left behind and forgotten by the Biden-Harris administration when Sudan began its civil war because of Victor Bout, the man he released for Brittany Griner. And we had 15,000 Americans abandoned in Africa, in Sudan, as warlords started to create civil war against each other. Not only has history repeated itself every single year that the Biden-Harris administration has existed, it has increased and gotten worse. And in every case, the news media expects, well, the American people forgot. They don't remember this. We don't have to talk about it. Those people are gone. They're no longer voters. They no longer count. Let's just forget. I don't forget.
Now let me ask you a question, Mike. And I'm Bass, and I want to, and this is going to go back to a conversation we had a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Do you think it would have been possible for the Biden administration to get these people home in whichever one of these theaters of war they find themselves languishing in? Do you think it would have been possible to? All right, let's err on the side of percentages and say, could this administration have orchestrated the, let's use the word rescue, of half of these people? Would it have been logistically possible, in your opinion? Now, you've got military and political experience. You know what's politically expedient. You know what's possible. Do you think it could have been done just with American power?
Just with American power in Afghanistan, yes, because we were rushing, we were racing so fast.
Okay, well, all right, let's not get into that part. Yes, for Afghanistan.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Ukraine.
All
right. Yes, for Ukraine, because we're dealing with what we would consider an ally at this.
Well, no, not because of the ally, because we had the ability for well over a month. We had actually 3 months to get those Americans out.
Well, the Ukrainians wouldn't have told us, no, you can't get your people out. They would have,
that's on top of it,
right?
Yeah, that's on top of it. But we could have landed
it's a
relatively 3 months.
Right. It's a friendly situation to get the people out of the Ukraine. Friendly enough, diplomatically speaking. Yes. It might be more complicated diplomatically to get them out of Afghanistan because there might be people being held by different factions that are not necessarily friendly to our efforts.
Depending on when you did it, yes.
Right. Now, the Sudan.
Okay.
It's a ragtag bunch of warlords that you could probably go in, wipe these guys out, get your people out. So with the Sudan, I would say America probably has the overwhelming ability.
No.
To get these people out.
No, not all at once. To be fair.
Not all at once. All right. But remember, I said let's reduce the number to half.
No, it wouldn't be half. And to be fair, in the Sudan, during the ceasefire, now I'm speaking about a very specific 1 week period of time, the Indian government got out 2,400 of its citizens.
All right.
The British.
Getting back to my point, though.
Wait a minute. I'm trying to.
No. I want to forget about the minutia. I want to just talk numbers.
I'm trying to get to
possibility. Numbers and possibilities.
The answer is no.
That's it. Could we have gotten 25% of the people out from all of these theaters?
All of them? Again, Sudan, no.
If, say, there's 30,000 people, 30,000 Americans that are abroad, could we have gotten 7,500 of them home?
In total? Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So let's look at those numbers. That's 25% of the 30,000, 7,500 people.
Yes.
They didn't.
No.
Okay.
No, they absolutely
didn't. We have the ability to do it. We have situations where the possibilities are there that we could at least get 7,500 of them home. They go on TV and tell us about 96, 98, 95, 102, whatever those numbers are.
Mm-hmm.
Was this a matter of incompetence or a matter of evil? Because I contest that if you can do something and you're morally and ethically bound to do something, and it's within your capability to get it done with minimal risk, even if you have a lot of risk to go and you are obligated to get these people out, and you make the conscious decision to abandon these people, that it is not incompetence, but it is far worse than incompetence. And that's why when we talk about these people in the powers of Washington making these decisions, and we keep talking about how these people are incompetent, I keep saying, no, they're not. There's reasons why they're doing it, and they're all nefarious.
Well, go ahead, Mike.
Here's my take on it, real quick. Okay, number one, we shouldn't have been pulling out of Afghanistan if it was that hot of a place to be getting our troops out of. Okay. Number two, if we did need to make that type of withdrawal, we should have went in there with everything we had to make sure that everybody got out of there. Plain and simple. Okay, you and I are Marines, Mike, and we've always been of the mindset, no man left behind.
Yes.
Okay, the Army has that same mindset, so does the Navy, so does the Air Force. Mm-hmm. And the fact that our government left men behind and forced our military people to do so is completely unsatisfactory.
Absolutely. And for those that don't know, unsatisfactory Marine Corps lingo, call it FUBAR, call it messed up, call it anything you want. It's in that line. It's just atrocious. It's unimaginable. Yeah.
Okay. And that being said, okay, for our commander-in-chief to boldly lie about this and to leave that many people behind shows his utter incompetence to be in that position.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And also, it is very telling of the Joint Chiefs of Staff for them to allow this to happen.
Well, that's General Mark Milley for you, a man I consider a traitor to the United States based on his actions. Yeah.
Okay, so that in and of itself shows that we had a complete and catastrophic failure all the way through the chain of command to the top level.
Yeah, or from the chain of command from the top down, I would say.
Right.
They failed to plan, to prepare, or to even execute on their top level, and the failures just flowed all the way down to the bottom. Because I truly don't believe that any of the commands on the ground, anyone who is there in Kabul, those who are in Kyiv, those who are in, I forget the city in Sudan, Darfur, they didn't want to leave. They weren't trying to abandon Americans. I mean, we have video of the event. We know they were trying to scoop up as many people. The pilots were flying with the C-130s. These things carry multiple tanks in them. They are enormous. They get almost the same kind of length as a football field. They filled it to beyond capacity, beyond weight.
Some of the planes were having trouble taking off because they were so overloaded.
Yeah, and they did that to get every single person they could. They didn't have to. They could have either waited to, there's another plane, maybe, we can wait, or don't. They wanted everyone that they possibly could. And I don't believe those men, if they knew, those men and women, if they knew for a fact that there were 5,000 more Americans in the wind, terrified, hiding from ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and Taliban, trying to keep their heads low and figure a way to get to Kabul, they would have found a way to go and get them. Kind of like the British commandos did which the American government didn't allow. The British sent the commandos to get their people and to get them out.
Honestly, the dedication of our American pilots in the Army, Navy, and Air Force, I would almost guarantee if they knew how many people were left behind, there is no doubt in my mind that they would have turned those jets around and returned. Okay. And the fact that they were not allowed to just speaks volumes of how inept the upper leadership of our military is right now.
Yeah.
Well, all you have to do if you want to know the will of the American servicemen is look to Benghazi.
Another great
There
example.
was a stand down order, and all of those people, including our ambassador, were murdered over there.
Yes.
But we had men that were years out of their service, that are there as private contractors, that knew that as their American brothers and sisters were in an embassy getting attacked, they went balls to the wall and did whatever they could to get as many of those people out of there as possible. And some of these guys paid with their lives to do it.
Yeah.
All right. Now these are people that they're already done with their service. They're done with the service. They don't have an obligation to their government contract to go back and save these lives. They have a moral obligation to themselves and the fact that they took an oath that doesn't have an expiration date. Now, when you weigh that against what you got, a couple of dozen guys over in Benghazi that could possibly go and do this, but you still have thousands of American troops that knew that these people were going to be, if they would have known that they were abandoned, you wouldn't have seen these people take off their cover.
Oh.
Put on a flak jacket, say, hey, I'm in the bathroom for a few hours and go take care of business. These people would have gotten out of there. But if they didn't know, it's because the chain of command didn't let them know that this was going on. This was a strategic decision made to abandon these people because Joe Biden didn't just wake up on the first of that month and go, let's get everybody out today. This was something that they planned on doing because they wanted to have a final date. They wanted to have the Obama withdrawal moment, where he said, that's it, this is done, it's over, it's done. He didn't want to have the endless wars bullshit. So he set a date, military chain of command, followed through what they did, said, do whatever you can to get everything done within that time frame as possible. Well, what about this? Don't worry about that. What does the president have to say? He said, do what we can.
He said, be out.
Or do what I want you to do.
Yeah.
Because if it was a matter of do what you can, we would have had most, if not all of those people out of there. This was a concerted effort to ignore the lives of these people. And I got to share it on the screen over here. A C-130 taken off from, was it Bagram Airport?
Yeah.
That's not a C-130. That's I think that's a C-5.
Yeah. It's way smaller. It's a C-5, I think.
It's either a C-5 or a C-117.
Whichever. I appreciate the correction. I just was pulling up whichever one. I put into the search engine C-130 because I knew that's one of the ones that we're using. But these are Afghan civilians that were, like everybody else who was at Bagram Airport, were friendly to the United States. There were hundreds, thousands of people that we had promised that we would get them out of country, because they knew that because they worked with the United States during the war, that every single one of these people would find their head on a chopping block at one point or another. Most of the people in that photo right here above are probably dead already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most of them are probably dead. These two poor suckers that fallen from they got out easy. They got out easy.
Yeah.
I hope to God that their heart exploded before they hit the ground and they didn't have to feel the suffer of impact. But these two deaths are directly attributed to Joe Biden. And because we don't have a count of how many people are dead that was abandoned, how many people are still alive, how many people are still being tortured, how many American women are over there right now that are in rape rooms right now being tortured, We don't have that number because the Taliban isn't going to give us that number. Al
The
Qaeda is
CIA
not
is.
going to give us that number.
Exactly.
We can only speculate. But
Yeah.
all we know,
Because the Taliban is not a state.
It is now.
Okay. And it is not a member of the Geneva Convention either.
No. That
So
they're
they've
not.
got no requirements to provide that information.
no,
They
and
have
if
no
you look
requirements of how they treat prisoners.
No, and if you look at American history and how we are so stupid in constantly repeating ourselves, this is going to be Mujahideen version 2.
Mm.
This is going to wind up being the enemy that once was is now going to be the friend because we could use them to do the things that we can't do here on American soil. So you will wind up buying their loyalty with weapons, buying their loyalty with money, buying their loyalty with equipment, and then making them do the things to their enemies who are, our friends today will be their enemies tomorrow and our enemies tomorrow. So you're going to wind up having black ops sites being operated by the people that we were at war with for 18 years.
We're already
It's gonna
doing
be
it.
Mujahideen, yeah, probably already doing it.
No, I know for a fact. We spend
Oh, yeah.
$30 million on humanitarian aid
Yeah,
in there, and that invariably
Yeah, well,
reaches directly back to the Taliban.
you don't leave billions of dollars of American aircraft, weaponry, munitions, intelligence, technology behind for your enemy if you don't plan at some point or another using that as a means of having your enemy use that against people that you can't go and take out yourself. or that's part of the payoff right there. This was not a matter of incompetence. This is a matter of evil. This is a matter of playing the long game. And this is a matter of these people doing what they want to do to retain their own power, keep America in the dark while curtailing our freedoms at home. And with that, now that I just piped off, Dan Was, author, Good Gun, Bad Guy, host of one of my all-time favorite shows that I just happen to know a guy who guest hosts on the show every now and then.
Yeah.
The Loaded Mic. Dan Was has joined us. Dan, thank you so much for popping in tonight. So happy to see you.
Thanks for the invite. How's it going, fellas?
Welcome, Dan. Good to see you again.
I just got a few minutes. I just wanted to pop in because I appreciate the invite. I can't stay because I'm working on some media stuff regarding a case in New York, a Second Amendment case called Gazzola versus Hochul. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with it.
No, I haven't heard of that one.
All right, so let me give you just, if you don't mind, can I change? I don't know what you guys are talking about. Can I
No,
change?
please go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
We don't have those nifty show minutes like you guys do with your fancy loaded mic.
I know we're under very strict time constraints, but Frank, you did a great job, and thanks so much for coming on the show. We had a great time.
Oh, dude, it was an absolute pleasure.
So, what's happening in New York? I just got off the phone with the lead attorney, the prosecuting attorney on the case, and what New York is doing, what Hochul's doing, is they're passing this. They passed this law that's going to start on September 13th. That's going to require background checks for ammunition, but it's also basically what they're doing is they're taking the ammunition background checks and the firearm background checks in-house in the state of New York. They're taking it away from the NICS system, so they're taking it away from federal. And now at the federal level, we have protections that protect gun owners from a gun registry. So the idea here is they're taking the ability to do the background checks and bringing it home to New York. The state police department is going to be controlling it. And ultimately, our big fear is that their intent is to create a background or a registry of New York state gun owners. It's an awful, heinous case, heinous law. The attorney, her name is Paloma. I don't know if you guys ever heard of Paloma from 2A Patriots. She just got off the phone with her. I got a few bits of information on this case. The law goes into effect on the 13th. So what they're trying to do is get everybody rallied. And there's going to be a big rally down in Kingston, New York, and they're trying to create enough energy and hype over this thing to get some reaction out of it. They're hoping for a preliminary injunction at the Second Circuit Court. What's happening is it's a case called Gazzola versus Hochul. The lawsuit was emergency motion was filed August 29th, 23 to the Second Circuit Court of Appeals in Manhattan, seeking an immediate injunction to stop the governor and the New York State Police from their intended takeover of the firearm background check, the launch of the ammunition background check system, and the investigation of federally licensed dealers, firearm dealers through the NYSP Joint Terrorism Task Force. And Hochul has made it clear that she will use a state background check system to create a gun owners registry, the first of its kind in the history of this nation. And the call to action on this thing is calling all federal firearms licensees in New York to go on strike on Wednesday, September 13th, by closing their front doors and refusing to transmit gun owner information to the governor and the state police. The attorney and plaintiffs are asking citizens to stand in solidarity with their local FFLs by firing a single shot at their local rod and gun club and ranges to create a shot heard round the state on the same day at high noon. This strike and shoot is unprecedented in the history of our country. This is our Boston Tea Party. So just wanted to make you guys aware of that. I'll try to answer any questions if you have any.
Just want to double check.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Dan.
Go ahead.
Aren't they requiring 2 background checks to be done?
Oh, as far as I know, there's a background check. Oh, you're talking about one for state and one for federal?
That, but also state was actually going to be used 2 different background companies to run checks on people. So you fill out the document and your information will be submitted to both of these background check people or companies to have background checks done on you. So
it could be. As far as I know, it's just the New York State Police that's doing this. So I'm not sure about the 2 background checks. I know it's going to the New York State Police Department. That's all I know.
Dan,
Go ahead, Vess.
Yeah.
Dan, I got a question. So if I'm remembering the name correctly, isn't the attorney Paloma, wasn't she involved as one of the leads in the lawsuits that went to the Supreme Court against the New York SAFE Act, which did result in having several statutes of that being removed?
Yes, I'm pretty sure you're right, Michael. I'm pretty sure she did.
So that's good. We know she's been successful, at least in part, in fighting against New York State and these kinds of issues.
She's very articulate. My God, the information I got today was just mind blowing. It's stuff that I can't even believe the complexity of this particular case. It's just unbelievable. The strategies that the state of New York is using are just outrageous. And from what I understand, they're even violating their own state laws. It's just incredible.
Oh, they are. Okay. They're violating Article 2, Section 4 of their civil rights law.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, this is the first I'm hearing about this one, because once I got out of New York, I tried to turn my eye to it, except for this New York State Pistol and Rifle Association case. That was the only one that I really was trying to follow along with. You mentioned that when you have the background check done at NICS, your federal thing, that there are certain protections that are built into that. One of them is being that we're not supposed to be included into a gun registry.
Right.
Another protection that we have through NICS that people probably don't realize is that NICS limits the scope of the background check to a certain point. And as long as you meet certain criteria for the federal level, they'll give you the approval to buy the handgun or the rifle or whatever it is that you're going to buy. With New York being the one who is now going to legislate what the background check entails, they're also going to figure out a way to include what they'll allow to be something that prevents you from getting the ammunition that you want to buy. They will figure out how to put the means, the disqualifiers in there.
I think I can answer that question. I think what you're talking about might be what they might be trying to do is limit your ammo purchase only to ammo that corresponds with guns that you have, at least in the pistol area, with pistols that you have on your license.
Well,
So in other words,
that's where I was going to come in with part two, because I want to know if this lawsuit that they're going to file is going to dovetail into the new requirement that they have that any New Yorker that wants to buy a semi-automatic rifle has to obtain a special permit for that rifle.
that's already in place. It's an amendment to your existing pistol permit that you have to file for with your county. As far as I know, that's where that stands right now.
Right. So, but now if you're going to buy a semi-automatic rifle, now that semi-automatic rifle, because you know that in every county in New York State, when you buy something that you have to be permitted for, make, model, serial number, all have to be included on your pistol permit. Because that's what your permit is for your pistols, which means that now they're going to want to keep an active record of what rifles that you have, because how are you going to be able to document that when you go to the range that the rifle you're in possession of is the one that is permitted to you? And that's going to have to be allocated on your permit. So now if I have a 223 556 or something like that, and I got a switchable upper for 300 blackout, I could buy the upper because it's not a rifle. I could buy the upper for that thing. And say I have a 223 that I go out and have the permit for, and I have that 223 is now registered on my license. And I go to the range a certain day and I say, you know what, I'm gonna throw my 300 blackout upper on it instead. And now I get called to the carpet because they got some state agencies out there wanting to check my permit. And now, according to my rifle, I have a 300 blackout rifle that's not registered.
Yeah.
So when they're going to turn this not only into a registry for handguns, but they're going to use this to try and get a registry into long guns, because it won't be too long before they wind up expanding this into pump action, into semi-automatic shotguns, if it's not already on there. And then they're going to wind up putting it, and they're going to say any rifle with a bottleneck cartridge, anything that's pump, anything, and then they're going to wind up going into a lever action. The only thing that you'll be able to buy is going to be a double action single barrel.
Well, maybe not even that. Shotgun. They're even talking about black powder guns. So who knows where this is?
There's another aspect of this that really annoys me that doesn't get talked about too much. And maybe, Dan, you may have addressed this with your audiences and others around the state, but this is like a double kick in the ass. Not only are they trying to create a registry, which is now going to increase the number of hurdles that people have to jump across, imposing itself against the Second Amendment. But the second thing that is absolutely a consequence of this, and that's important to understand, is when they try and implement this, they're going to slow walk everything.
Oh, of course.
They're going to create a massive bottleneck. The State Department, the state police of New York can't handle the workload they have already. The red flag laws already have swamped all of the state police and the judicial departments on top of the regular cases they've had. Now you're going to add another bureaucratic process that they don't have the manpower for, that they don't have the computer power, the files, they don't have the systems, the infrastructure for this, which means it's going to inherently and absolutely restrict the number of people who can legally get ammunition for their firearms. And that means for women that they're going to be endangered because they can't train, they can't defend themselves. It means that this is racial as well, because blacks and minorities are going to be denied the ability to do the same thing other groups are doing because of the disproportion of money. Money is time. It's going to disproportionately affect the poor, and that means minorities in New York State. Where's the ACLU? Why aren't they jumping in on this?
Exactly.
You can't do this.
Well, exactly.
Well, I'll tell you how they'll get the FFLs on the side of the law. The same way that they're getting all of the firearm trainers firearm instructors in the states that are trying to pass, no permit required, concealed carry. Is what they'll wind up doing is they'll put a caveat in this thing that says, oh, you can buy all the ammunition that you want for your gun so you can train with, but you'll have to do it at the range. You'll be able to expend your ammunition at the range. So this way, they can say, we're not eliminating the ability for people to train because they have to train at a range anyway. And if they need the ammunition, well, they have to use it while they're training. So the FFL is going to make the same sale, and that's how they get those guys on board. Because a lot of the FFLs, let's face it, they're for the buck first, the Second Amendment second. I hate saying it about the community, but it's a fact. It's a fact of life.
Let me address a couple of things Michael said. Michael, you nailed it. Here's right now the way it is. The way it stands right now, they don't even have the infrastructure for the FFLs to sign up to this new program yet. So the FFLs haven't been able to apply to deal under this new policy, let alone the infrastructure to do the actual background checks. So what's going to happen on the 13th of September is nothing will be in place and everything will come to a grinding halt. That means gun purchases and ammo purchases will halt on September 13th if we don't get some sort of stay, preliminary injunction, or something like that on this thing. And that's what the attorneys are fighting for. And one more thing I just want to add real quick.
Yep.
You mentioned red flag laws.
Yes.
It's so important because they're going to use this background, this registry. I call it a background. It's really a registry. They're going to use the registry in conjunction with the New York State red flag law where police and just about anybody can accuse you of being a risk, and your guns can be confiscated without due process. But before they can be confiscated under red flag laws, they need to know where they're located, which is why this registry is so important.
Exactly.
Yeah. I have you, Dan, we've talked about this many times on many, many channels. Red flag laws are insidious and evil and ineffective. Utterly, absolutely ineffective. Just to mention, and I know you follow this as much as I do, but to my knowledge, at this moment, we have never seen any case where the red flag laws, like in any of the mass shootings, in Florida, just last week, we haven't seen them actually do anything. They're not effective. They're not saving people's lives. Am I wrong?
Yeah, no, I don't remember. I don't know of anyone that's done any good. Any red flag confiscation that's done any good. I really don't.
But, there's one problem that they wound up putting into themselves with the red flag laws, and that's a problem we spoke about on the show last week. Dan, was that how you can't disprove a negative.
Yeah, right.
We talked about how you can't always prove that the presence of a gun prevented a crime.
Well, you can't measure something that never happened.
Right. So we also can't measure the fact that if you took somebody's guns, that they were actually going to do something.
Right.
So you could use that as a point to say you have no way of verifying.
Yeah.
The same way you try to tell us that we don't have the numbers to prove that our point doesn't stand scrutiny. You don't have the point that says it stands scrutiny because you have no evidence to support the fact that the person you took the guns from was actually going to commit the crime.
Yeah.
Right.
Or at least use a firearm to commit it.
It's all hypothesis. It's just crazy.
Oh,
yeah.
One last
what they should just do is just go back to, something called the Second Amendment and leave it the hell alone.
That would be
That
nice.
would probably remedy most of the problems that we have now.
That would be good.
Absolutely. One last thing for you, Dan. I have still been trying since 2018 to get New York State or any of the red flag states, 18 of them now, to provide the numbers of how many children have been taken from families because of the red flag laws. Again, a consequence that most people don't realize, but every attorney, every politician that's voted for a red flag law all accept and detail. Red flag laws allow the state to take your kids. Therefore, and we know it is happening. I've had Connecticut, Indiana, New York State all acknowledge it's happening. No one can come up with a number. hopefully, maybe Dan, you have a better access to the media and some other groups than I do. Maybe they can write a letter that I've been trying for, what is it, 7 years now? They won't talk to me.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll talk to somebody to give us the number of how many kids have been taken because of red flag laws.
Yeah, it's a good question. And also, another thing they don't do is if the person is supposedly a risk to society, they leave the person in the house. They don't do anything with the person. They just take the guns. It's something that it's really about taking the guns. That's all it is.
Yeah, that's something that has always baffled me. Okay, if a person is such a danger to society that they are not allowed to have a firearm, why the hell are they still in society?
Same reason why there's 140 known or suspected terrorists that walked across the southern border, caught by Secretary Mayorkas and agents at the southern border, and they were released into America, according to his testimony to Darrell Issa in a congressional hearing 3 weeks ago. 140, an increase of 46 times the number of terrorist threats entering into America in the year 2000, 43% more than 2022 alone. 140 possible 9/11s running around in America right now with a summons to show up in court in 3 years.
Right.
Hey, don't you feel safe?
Well, hey,
I don't know if you knew that, Dan.
You're not going to believe Peppermint Patty from her White House press podium when she says that, Sleepy Joe is doing everything he needs to secure the border, including welding the friggin' gates open.
Yeah.
Don't you believe her?
Oh,
Don't
God.
you take some solace that the history-making person?
Yeah.
I guess I'm poking fun at her. The trailblazing, history-making press secretary.
Who's horrible at her job.
Yeah.
Well, fellas, I got to run. I got a ton of work to do before I fall asleep here at my desk. So, but thank you for having me on. I hope I didn't anger you too much with this New York stuff, but
not you, New York State.
Dan, I'm gonna shoot you a couple of scenarios this week on how maybe we could look at that rifle permit bullshit.
Okay.
Because the only way we're going to get that turned over is we have somebody withstanding, which means we have to have somebody get arrested.
Somebody's got to there's got to be a damage.
Somebody has damage to show, and I think I may have a couple of ways to be able to do it. I might even volunteer.
Oh, well, and maybe I'll present it to the guys at Gun Owners of America and see what
we can do.
All right, fellas, thank you. Have a good night.
All right, Dan.
Dan Watts, host of the
Dan.
Loaded Mics. Thank you, brother. Have a great night.
Good guy.
I love that guy. He's a trip. I'll tell you one thing though. I mean, I was joking before. We don't exactly run the tightest ship here. Short stuff. He asked me last week. He says, "Hey, he sent me an invite on a wrong text thread."
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Hey, if you need me, for a little bit of comic relief, let me know. I'll jump in." And he goes, "Now we'll have you on another night. We got a pretty booked schedule." Then about an hour later, I got a text says, "Hey, you know what? You want to come on and host with me tonight?" I said, "Yeah, okay." He sends me a text. I don't want to let his industry secrets out of the way, but he has every minute of his show accounted for.
A lot of people do that.
He's got that friggin' thing blueprinted. Now, whether or not he sticks to the blueprint, I'm not going to tell you because the show goes off pretty well. But damn, he's got his act together, that guy. He really does.
Everyone has different styles, and I know a lot of people when it comes to political commentary, they have their time allotments for every issue, mostly because most people don't have the time it needs to deal with a lot of these things,
right?
Which is why there's a few of us out there. Like I love to do this. Everyone knows where I just will take as long as I need to get it done, which gives me a 5-hour show sometimes.
Yeah. Well, not everybody has a no sound bites allowed policy.
Yeah.
On the show, a
it's
lot
hard.
of guys, you got to run with a soundbite because your attention span of a lot of viewers or listeners is only going to be very limited
and
because
that's
of their schedule.
The real issue.
Yeah.
You know, so that's where we go. So they got to jump topic to topic to topic, and unfortunately, sometimes that suffers because you don't get to cover everything. But it also works out well because you don't go off into tirade rants like I tend to do. And I don't have to, and since my other soundboard isn't working, I don't have a beep button on this soundboard anymore. So I can't censor myself.
Well, there you go. That's about
Yeah, it's such a tragedy being able to speak my mind.
Okay.
All right. Now, who wanted to talk about the Gadsden Flag?
Yes, we do need to talk about that.
You'll notice my beautiful backdrop this evening that I had custom flown in
Okay.
just to appear on the show today.
Now,
they're coming for me.
Well, you are in the Bronx. I thought you had a cat running around by you for a second.
No, it's the nightly run of fire and or police.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a fire department siren. That's not police.
Yeah, every night, at least once, usually twice. It's the weekend, so 3 times.
Well, honk 3 times in the street if you want me.
I know. It's because I'm, Boston
Yeah,
Road.
Pete.
It's Route 1. There's always
Yeah,
something.
Pete says that's fire. Yeah, Pete knows it's fire.
Yeah.
Don't ask why. All right, Mr. Marshall,
yes.
give us some
Gadsden.
information on the Gadsden Flag and why it's so relevant this week, more so than it has been in recent memory.
Okay. Well, the Gadsden Flag, and I'm sure a lot of our viewers already know this, wasn't a symbolization of slavery. It was a symbolization of our resistance to Britain trying to step on our rights and remove our rights. Okay. South Carolina Congressman Christopher Gadsden created this flag and presented it to the first commander-in-chief of the United States Navy, Essex Hobson. The yellow flag with the rattlesnake and the words "Don't tread on me" was flown by Hopkins from his flagship, the USS Alfred, and hoisted by Revolutionary War hero John Paul Jones. It was also the first flag of the United States Marines. Okay, and that's why the Gadsden flag has a rich history with the Marine Corps. And actually, there are several units that use the Gadsden flag as a part of their unit patches. Okay, now this week, a teacher, I believe it was Houston, suspended a student from school for having the Gadsden flag on his backpack, claiming that the Gadsden flag was a symbol of slavery and that it was disruptive in the classroom. Okay, now, aren't our teachers supposed to be teaching our students history and not fake history, but actual history?
Well, no. It wasn't fake history, Mike. It was edited history because the progressive teacher's mind only goes back to 1860 slavery. That's all they know.
Yeah.
Slavery, which means black people are being offended constantly. And you mean this was before 1860? America was around before 1860? Oh no, who knew? Surprise! And that's part of the problem in this whole thing.
Now, just for reference, I wanted to bring up a picture of the USS Alfred. This is a painting that was done in 1969 by Nolan Van Powell, and if you look at the top of the foremast, you'll see the Gadsden flag, the battle flag, up in the top of it. So, this is not history that Michael's making up. This is legitimate history.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, this was actually, if I'm not mistaken, it predates the flag by Betsy Ross.
Well, I'm not sure if it's Betsy Ross, but it is an official.
Yes, it was.
flag. It was?
Yes. Okay. Betsy Ross didn't make her flag until late May, early June of 1776. The Gadsden flag was presented on December 20th, 1775.
Well, if I'm not mistaken about the design of the rattlesnake and the "Don't Tread on Me," is it was split into 13 sections to represent the 13 colonies that had formed together to
Yes.
form a new union. And the flag, the Gadsden version of the flag that we see over my shoulder, shows 13 what they called 13 coils rather than 13 cuts, which was now meant to represent that the 13 colonies had unified. Now that the 13 colonies were no longer separate, but now included in one nation. And that one nation is saying, "Don't tread on me," because it was now you could say me instead of us,
Mhm.
because us would have been, for a group. Me is unity. That's "Don't tread on me." That flag is meant to represent all the 13 colonies as one nation rather than as separate 13 colonies. So that's the significance of the two. Now, that unified Gadsden flag had been adopted not only by that, but it expanded in its use. Do you have any more on that expansion of its use?
Yeah. Okay.
I know, but
So,
it's recent.
like I said, John Paul Jones flew it on his flagship. It was also the first flag of the United States Marine Corps.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And in 1754, that's when the Join or Die cartoon came out.
Now, I know I don't know what happened before 2010, but I know what happened in 2010 with the flag. I think which is what it's most commonly known for today.
Elaborate.
Well, in 2010, we had, between 2008 and 2012 to be exact. But most importantly, in 2010, there was the Tea Party movement,
Right.
which is taxed enough already. That's what the T stands for, taxed enough already, which was a universal idea across America that we need to change the tax laws. And we had a wave of mostly more conservative, both Democratic and Republican conservatives, fiscal conservatives, came together across the United States, and they were pushing for changes in tax laws and different officials to be elected to support that, among other issues. And they took as their symbol nationally, they started using the Gadsden flag. And that's something that even to this day, the many Tea Parties still exist, and some of them have gone and mixed into other parts of the Republican Party, Conservative Party, Libertarian Party. But that's what the most common usage that anyone today, if you happen to be about 30 to 40 years old, the first message of the Gadsden flag is going to be the Tea Party. That's what people are going to acknowledge and connect to. And that, again, this teacher, again, threw out that context, the most current context, to go with an obscure and virtually unknown aspect of the Gadsden flag to push a political ideology onto a child and the parent and trying to guilt them into compliance, which is really, really evil. Let's call it what it is. That's evil. That you're trying to push an ideology, ignoring current trends, current meanings. Remember, we can change the meanings of words. That's why Black people can take the N word and they've recontextualized it. No, they didn't. They did not recontextualize it. But They say that so that they can now make money off of it. There's the recontextualization. You now use the N word to make money for corporations that are not black owned. You can do that, and that's the recontextualization. But here we are. The Gadsden flag was originally about the United States. It was recontextualized recently to represent the American people versus our own government, not others.
Right.
And they went to, well, you must be talking about 1860. How the hell do you make that leap of logic?
And as far as I know, the Gadsden flag was not flown at all during the Civil War. I mean,
Not
I'd
that
have
I'm
to
aware
do
of.
more research on it, but I'm pretty sure that it wasn't. Okay. Now, a variation of the Gadsden flag. Let me see if I can actually get this to come up. Okay, let me share this. Was this flag, and this actually became the first Navy Jack flag. And this was required to be flown on all naval vessels and was flown on the first naval engagement in the Nassau Islands or the island Nassau, to take powder and ammunition from a British stronghold there.
Yeah.
Okay, another variation of the flag was the Culpeper flag.
I don't know the Culpeper flag. What is that?
I'm getting ready to share it. Okay, which was also, it's a variation on the original Gadsden flag, but the Culpeper flag was liberty. Give me liberty or death. Don't tread on me. And again, symbolizing the unified snake.
Interesting. And the rattle has 5 rattles for the first 5 states ratifying the Constitution. Yeah.
No, this would have been prior to that.
Oh, okay.
This kid with the backpack, what state was that again?
Houston, Texas, if I remember right.
Was that Colorado?
No.
All right, Houston. All right, Houston, Texas. All right. All right, so this is going to better elaborate my point in a second, because I'm going to share something to you. What do you think that teacher does when she drives around in her state and she happens to see the Gadsden Flag license plates that say Texas on them?
Right.
Because all the map I'm showing you right here are all the states that currently offer, through the Department of Motor Vehicles, for you to have a Gadsden flag as your background on your license plate. So if someone who goes to some kid who goes to that school, their parents has that on a license plate, is she going to insist that the parents can't drive it onto the campus and pick the kid up from school?
Of course, because it's racism.
Does she file a protest with the DMV that all of these slave owners are driving around? What does she do when she goes to Virginia?
Yeah, of
or
course.
South Carolina?
Of course, because she's been offended, and that means you must change your life because her feelings were hurt, because her mismemory of the history of the United States is far more important than any actual reality.
You know what I think I'm going to do? I'm going to find this teacher this week. I'm going to find this teacher. And I am going to offer to pay for an Ancestry.com test for her. I don't want to see if she's going to be brave enough to follow her ancestry back to find out what sins are in her family's past. And maybe before she asks somebody to atone for sins that they never committed, she could atone for the sins that her family may have.
I will guarantee you she's probably already done it. And this is her way of apologizing
no,
for
no,
being
no, no,
born white.
No, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to guarantee she didn't. Because you know how I know she probably didn't? Because one of the most outspoken BLM, black supremacy, whites of the devil people from the 1960s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and beyond, Angela Davis,
Yeah.
just sat down. Remember the guy that had the beer summit with Obama at the White House? That professor guy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he's an ancestry.com guy who has some little thing. He just interviewed her and did her DNA test for her. And as it turns out, Angela Davis is the descendant of slave owners. And not only the descendant of slave owners, her great grandfather was a passenger on the Mayflower. One of those evil people that came over here and exterminated the American Indians.
Yeah.
So maybe we won't hear so much from Angela Davis in the future. I don't know, but you had to see her. Did you see the video of that?
No.
Did you see her reaction? Oh my God. Oh my
Well,
God.
I've got the video of this teacher.
About near had a heart attack. You're going to share that if you're going to share that with audio, we may have to bring your audio way up in order to hear it, because I watched this clip and it's very low. You might want to hit the closed caption
Do
too.
you know what the Gadsden Flag is? It's a historical flag.
So there, the reason that they do not want the flag, the reason we do not want the flag displayed is due to its origins with
The Revolutionary
slavery and slave trade. That is what was, that's the reasoning behind them not wanting to display it.
The Gadsden Flag,
The don't tread on me.
which is the Gadsden Flag. Okay, so he's, what's gonna happen if he doesn't take it off?
He is able to go. I was actually just telling him, like, I was upset that he's missing so much school. I'm like, so I asked if, can he just take his stuff out of his bag and go back to class? Like, I just want him to go back to class. The bag can't go back. It's got back.
By the way, this was Colorado.
In and around other kids. So
No.
that's what I was trying to. And then he
Yeah,
was
yeah.
close, so I was like, oh.
Yeah. it
I thought
has
we said
nothing to do with
Texas.
slavery. That's like the
I want to make sure to correct the
Revolutionary War.
record.
That was when they were fighting
Yeah.
the British. Like that wasn't. That's the revolution. Maybe you're thinking of like the Confederate Confederate flag.
Okay, I
Is
am
there
just
history
here
that you
to,
can tell me?
no, I am here to. enforce
Pause it
the
for a second.
that was provided.
Okay.
So, do we see what's happening here? The teacher comes in with a pseudo fact,
Mm-hmm.
and the teacher is asserting, I'm the authority. You must comply. You, American citizen, are too dumb to know American history. So I will tell you a version of American history that matches a political ideology, and you must submit. And then the parent, as we can hear her, says, well, no, this goes back before the Confederates. This is about the British. This is about the beginning of America. And the teacher goes, well, no, you misunderstand. Let me clarify again for you how it was repurposed. Do you notice again? Oh, you were too dumb. Oh, you're not too dumb. Well, no, you just don't know enough. You're smart, okay, but you don't know enough. Now submit. Again, this is this is a flex of authoritative power to crush average people under boot. You aren't a teacher. You don't have a degree. I am teaching history. You must listen, you peon. This is condescending. This is, besides being absolutely factually incorrect, being wrong on all the points he's trying to make and trying to push politics here. It is also just insulting to have this happen. And the child there, well, you can't go into the classroom. You can't play. Why? Have you seen what most kids have on their backpacks these days?
Oh, yeah.
You mean to tell me that's the most offensive thing that you could possibly
And-
have?
Well, here's the interesting thing is just so she is literally caught in her lie and her authority is questioned, she passes the buck to the district, saying that it is district policy. Okay, and we can see that right here.
Definitely, you have every right to not agree with it. I mean,
Yeah, because
yeah,
the ACLU
absolutely.
says that he's allowed to wear that. If you like go on their website, it's like says in big
So
letters.
all I'm saying is that
Unless there's like a ban on patches, period, like if you said there's no patches allowed at the school, you cannot display what you think or anything like that, or what cheer, or anything like that. I think it's like one-sided, because
So I'm going to pause this again. Okay. She even lied about what district policy was. The mother here did her research, and I commend her for having her facts and having her knowledge and so forth, because she went to the district website to determine what policy supposedly the Gadsden Flag violates. And she said that the district policy stated that he could wear the Gadsden Flag. You're muted, Mike.
You notice how every time when there is that confrontation, the teacher doubles down, triples down, and she's trying to push her messaging. But it's a district. You just aren't smart. So you know history, but you don't know about our policies. Oh, you do know about our policies, but you just don't understand the way it's applied. It's always, again, you must submit. This is a teacher. If she is going to this extreme, having been caught 3 times already with someone who is knowledgeable and misrepresented fact after fact, this should not be a teacher in front of children.
No.
This is someone who is indoctrinating. This is someone who is misrepresenting facts and is damaging these children because she doesn't know what she's talking about. And yet she's protected by a union. Go ahead.
Right. Exactly. And the thing is like I said, she gets the mother. I commend her with the way she handled herself, conducted herself on this.
you allow some patches.
It's great.
Other
Other kids
patches.
have patches like when they use some like the American flag and that type.
Yeah. That was like flown during the revolution. Yeah, I just don't stand that at all.
so what I can do.
And if you go onto the ACLU's website, yeah, let's talk to
I
someone,
can,
because
I
I
can
don't
have
want a
you
lawsuit,
speak
I
to,
really don't.
I can have you speak to Jeff Yoakum again.
And now she's trying to pass the buck.
refer you to our person at the district,
Okay.
because
It's not just she's trying to pass the buck. She's trying to say it's an appeal to kindness, appeal to friendship. She's saying, I'm on your side. Don't worry. I understand. I'm going to talk to those superiors. This is a tactic that we see used carsmen, bad
Right.
used carsmen, the lemon cars, which is why we have lemon laws. This is what they used to do. Oh, I want to save you some money. Look, I'm going to go back. I'm going to go talk to my boss in the back room here. I'm going to try and knock down the price an extra $200-$300. I know you're a single mom. I know you're a hardworking guy. You just got laid off. You're a young person getting your first car. Whatever the excuse they needed to say, you have brown shoes on. Let me go into the back room. I'll talk to my boss. I'll see if I can get the price knocked down for you, like $500. Hang on a second. They go to the back room, have a cigarette, come back out. Look, I couldn't get it down 500. I did get 150. Look, it's not exactly what we wanted, but we know you want that car, don't you? So how about that? Meanwhile, what they don't know is that this is pure commission. This car has already been, in the example with the lemon laws, you have a car that's actually worth $500 that they're selling for $2,000, and he just dropped the price by $150. The commission is going straight to his pocket.
Right.
It's a ripoff. It's the same idea here. I'm going to go to Jeff Yoakum. You know what? I know I'm on your side. I want to help your kid because your kid, he could be on the right track, minus the patches here. We're going to try and fix this. I'll get him back in the classroom. I'm going to talk to
Well,
Jeff.
Even at the beginning, she was saying, well, I was trying to figure out how we can get him back into class because he's missed so much school.
Yeah. And
Okay,
again,
but he can't take that flag with him.
right. You just got to compromise with me on that one thing, but I'll get him back. He's going to do great. He's a good kid. Got to keep him on the right track. We got to get him away from these bad influences, and he'll be okay. I'll talk to my boss. I can get this done for you. Just help me. Just do this one little thing. Give up your freedom. Give up your choice. Give up your parental rights.
Right.
This is what's happening before our eyes.
Okay.
I said we're following district policy.
So again, she doubles down on the lie of following this.
Yeah, I know me
That's
too.
all
He
the last
takes
thing I
his
want.
classes seriously.
Yes.
He studies. He wants to get straight A's. He did that. He made honor roll when he was here before. He intends to do that again right now, but it's hard because he keeps missing class for this. So
I understand that.
yeah, and I mean, we teach him to always stick up for your beliefs. And I mean, you're going over the revolution for 7th grade. I mean, the founding fathers stood up for what they believed in against unjust laws. This is unjust.
Okay, like I said, we're upholding a policy that was provided to us, which we have to uphold.
Okay, can you show me where the policy?
So
Yeah. So again, she's not backing down. Well, you're being unreasonable. We're trying our best to help you as you comply with our will, our arbitrary political partisan ideology. You're just being so unreasonable.
yeah. So real quick, okay, because we're already an hour and 11 minutes into the show. I want to touch on some things, other things, and this kind of lays into that.
Well, before you do that, can I just throw one quick, just taking 10 seconds?
What you got?
I just want to let it be known that while this was all happening, Jared Polis, the Democrat elected governor of Colorado, he did step in to this thing. And if you see on the screen,
Oh, yeah, he did stand up for the kid.
Yeah, it said the great. Yeah, to his credit, which I'm real actually surprised this guy did it because he doesn't exactly have the track record of standing up for patriots. The Gadsden Flag is a proud symbol of the American Revolution and an iconic warning to Britain or any government not to violate the liberties of Americans. It appears on popular medallions and challenge coins throughout today, and Ben Franklin also adopted it to symbolize the union of 13 colonies. It's a great teaching moment for in a history lesson. That was directed at her, the teacher.
Right. Yeah. And I do have to
that was
say Jared Polis responded to that wonderfully. He's dead on, and he did right on that.
It's only because of the backlash.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, because
it's
he didn't say
whatever the reason is, at least it clarified something, because now that the governor of Colorado came out and identified that, that's one arrow we can take from the quiver of the people that would fire it at that flag. Is that even one of your own governors admitted the proud history and origin of that flag, and that it is not something that besmirches anybody. It's not somebody that demeans anybody. It's something that celebrates our independence.
Yeah. Revisionist history is always partisan every single time.
Well, at least this time we pulled one of theirs from their ranks and have them come to our side to agree, even if it's for a moment. I'm not going to say it's going to win them any votes, but it helps.
Okay. So, common topic among the left right now is taxing the wealthy and making them pay their fair share. Okay, and we've had discussions about this in the past. Okay. So here we're going to listen to Biden.
It sounds like Biden. Nothing's being said.
Yeah, it's actually it sounds more like Mitch McConnell.
Okay. So that's Biden's remarks.
Hey, we
No,
played
no,
Fat-
no, it didn't play anything. That's why I was
we
saying
played
it's
Fat-
dead silent.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't share.
That's why we were filling. That's why we were filling the dead air with comedy.
Okay.
Next will
So,
be the Who's on First.
Let me try this again. Okay.
Now we're with you. Okay.
Here we go.
How do we pay for my jobs and family plan? I made it clear we can do it without increasing the deficits. Let's start with what I will not do. I will not impose any tax increase on people making less than $400,000.
Lie.
But it's time for corporate America and the wealthiest 1% of Americans to just begin to pay their fair share.
Lie.
Fair share.
Okay. So that's the big deal that's going on right now is that the wealthiest 1% need to pay their fair share. Okay. And we've gone over the charts numerous times on this show.
Yeah. It's a flat out lie.
So the first thing that I want to talk about is even though the 18th Amendment, I'm pretty sure it's the 18th Amendment, authorized Congress to collect an income tax.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That is nothing more than legalized robbery. Okay. Because if you look at the other taxation that Congress was authorized to do, all those taxes were voluntary. Okay. Tariffs, etc. Okay. If you didn't want to pay the tax, you didn't do the business. If you didn't want to pay the tax, you didn't import the goods that were being tariffed or excised. Okay. Plain and simple. So it was literally a voluntary tax. Income tax is not voluntary. Okay. In fact, if anything, it is a violent attempt to extort money from the American people. Okay. Because I don't care how you look at it. I don't care what you say. Every law is enforced at the end of a gun. This includes taxation. And literally what you are doing by wanting to steal the property of these quote unquote 1% wealthiest people, or actually what he's saying is anybody making over $400,000 a year.
Which is not the top 1%.
No, it's not.
More.
What you are essentially saying is you have too much and I'm going to take it from you because I don't want you to have that much. And guess what? I'm going to do it at the end of a gun. Because if you do not comply with my new tax law, you will be put in prison. And guess what? Guys with guns are going to come and arrest you.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why we have a Treasury Department. That's why they have firearms. That's
Exactly.
why the IRS has 87,000 agents, many of them who have or required to carry a firearm.
Yeah.
And as a result, an IRS agent just killed one of his coworkers last week at a range during a training session.
Really?
So not only are they going to kill Americans, they'll probably wind up killing themselves too.
Now, another interesting note on this, okay, is Biden claimed that these new 87,000 IRS agents were hired so that they could go after the richest people that were avoiding paying taxes.
Which is a lie as well.
80 to 90% of the new agents are doing audits on people that make less than $400,000 a year.
Of course. That's why you need 80,000 of them, because there aren't that many people. There aren't even 80,000 people in the top 1% in the United States.
Now, as I was saying, okay, literally income tax is nothing more than extortion at the end of the gun. Okay, the government is threatening violence if you do not pay your taxes. And if you don't believe me, find out. Cheat on your taxes. Okay, do so where it is extremely obvious. And I guarantee agents with guns will be knocking on your door and filing charges for tax evasion.
Unless your name is Hunter Biden.
Yeah. Okay. So that being said, and now you know my feelings on income tax. We have something else here going on too. Okay. What we have going on with this mentality of the wealthy must pay their fair share is the people that have the means and intelligence to produce must provide for those that need. And that is a model that is completely unsustainable. And if you think about it along those lines, you are literally trying to steal property away from an individual who has used their means to produce the wealth that they have. Okay. And I know that there's a lot of you that are going to try to say, well, a lot of these people in the 1%, they inherited their wealth.
Okay.
Maybe they did. But don't your heirs deserve to benefit from the fruits of your labor?
Well, the other way to also think of that is just because I inherited it doesn't mean it's yours. Just because I got it from my family that earned it and maintained it, and we pay taxes on that anyway, that doesn't mean that you have free reign. So, okay, I inherited a house, as an example. Someone in America inherits a house. Fantastic. Does that mean that the New York State can
Exactly,
take
Peter.
that property and give it away? Because, oh, you inherited it, so it's not yours. It's now free property, and we can just take it. No. Same thing with money that's been inherited. There is no difference. It's not just free and available for the government to take. It's a stupid argument.
You end up paying an estate tax, okay, or otherwise known as death tax.
Yeah.
On anything that you inherit from an heir.
Yeah.
And they want to continue taxing that. Okay. I'm sorry. It doesn't work that way because number one, first off, it was taxed when the person was alive.
Yes.
Then it was taxed again upon their death. And now you're wanting to tax it again? I mean, come on. Get real.
Well,
Now,
the money that you earned to buy the house was taxed.
Yes.
You paid closing costs. Then you pay the taxes on the house.
Mm-hmm.
Then when the house goes up in value and you decide you want to sell it, you say, nah, maybe what I'll do is I'll just invest some of my some of the house value and improve on the house. So you get an equity loan on the house. Now you're paying taxes on your equity loan. You build up property, so you now make the house worth even more. So they tax you at a higher rate when they reassess you. And then when you pass it, they're going to tax it again and again. You buy a car. How many times have you look, I have bought a shit ton of used cars in my life. And I have seen the Carfax on all of them. I think the record for one car I owned was that it had like 11 different owners in like 15 years. Every time that car was sold, somebody paid tax on it. The car should have only been taxed one time, the time it was bought, if it was going to be taxed at all. But they tax it over and over and over and over and over again. And then you complain about, oh, this person makes too much money. Stop worrying about what other people make and start worrying about what you're being taxed that you don't even realize you're being taxed on.
Okay. So now, let me get back to my train of thought on this. Okay. So we're wanting to take away the property of these richest individuals.
Yeah.
That were rewarded with their wealth by creating jobs.
Yep.
By providing products that we voluntarily bought.
Mm-hmm.
The jobs that were created, the employees are voluntarily there.
Yep.
Regardless what the rate of pay is. Okay. They voluntarily agreed to that rate of pay.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they wouldn't be working there. And they have provided returns on investments into these businesses. Okay. Along with other benefits.
Mm-hmm.
Along the way. That is what created their wealth. So we are going to penalize the people of means for providing all this stuff. And anybody that is thinking that we need to do this, I want you to ask yourself this, plain and simply. And if you're trying to say that, well, they made money off of exploiting their workers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All excuses. I mean, I heard them all. What happens if all these businessmen all of a sudden shut down their businesses?
We get a depression and everyone's out of work and they're all starving to death. Because poor people don't create businesses.
Now, I stated that to somebody today in a debate I was having over this. And what he claimed was, well, somebody with a fair mindset would start up a business and treat the employees fair.
What's stopping them from doing that right now?
Exactly. But my reply to him was, where are they going to get the money to start up this so-called business?
You want to know what's really missing from this whole debate? As somebody who was a small business owner for over 20 years, and believe me when I tell you, I struggled every single day, struggling where the guys who were working for me got paid more than I did, probably by 2, when you broke down the amount of hours I had to put in to make sure that everybody did have jobs. You worked 40 hours a week. I was on the job site with you for that 40, but I was spending 40 hours a week at home, making sure that there would be another 40 hours of work the following week. I killed myself doing that work. Suffered injury, scars.
Hold
up, Mike. Let me just make this point real quick.
Yeah.
The people that are going to come out and complain that, oh, we got to take these people's money. We got to take this. We got to take that. They want to take that money and turn it over to the very government that wastes and squanders the money they take from the small people as well.
Mm-hmm.
The government that wastes and abuses our money. Do they think they're going to take half of Jeff Bezos' billions of dollars and that every single dollar of that is going to wind up going back into poor communities and help them? No, you'd be lucky if you got $100,000 out of $1 billion got spent back in these communities. Nothing. And to your point, Vass, poor people don't create businesses. I'm going to tell you that's not true. It's not true. They do create businesses. They create businesses every day.
Yeah, they do.
Every single day, poor people create businesses because we still are a land of opportunity. The problem that we have in this country is that when poor people do try to start up businesses, government puts so many fucking roadblocks in their way that they fail before they get their foot across that red black threshold between profit and loss. They fail because government is in the way. When you're a general contractor in New York, when the last time I had to hire somebody, it cost me $2,300 the moment that I had to start that guy's workers' comp file, and the guy didn't show up for work. Did I get that $2,300 back
Oh,
from
hell
the
no.
state of New York? No. They take everything that they can and they put up every roadblock. If you want poor people in the United States of America to really thrive and become successful and create businesses that work, get government out of their way and stop worrying about what other people are paying taxes on, worry about the shit they put in front of you, that mountain of paperwork, the mountain of qualifications that you have to have, the mountain of everything, and ask yourself, really, how did Jeff Bezos build his empire? He was a poor guy living out of a Toyota Camry, for God's sake. He lived out of a Toyota Camry, and he created one of the world's largest companies. Elon Musk didn't come from wealth that
No,
he
he
was
didn't.
able to do what he did. Henry Ford didn't come from wealth. The greatest magnates on this planet, even if you want to go back and we can talk about the Vanderbilts, or we can talk about this one, talk about that one, they all started out with a small idea that became huge. The thing is, they managed to overcome where so many fail, and that's because of government. If you want to succeed in this country, tie the hands of government and let loose the engine of entrepreneurship, and you will see people become wealthy. You will see the American dream realized. And then poor people will no longer have to have an excuse about what the Joneses down the street are driving when they're driving a nicer car themselves. God damn it.
Yeah.
That's 20 some odd years of pent up rage from losing my shirt and becoming a goddamn handicapped cripple because I can't do what I used to do.
Well, and you are exactly right, Frank. Most business failures aren't due to mismanagement of business. Most business failures are due to them not being able to overcome the obstacles that have been placed in their way.
Right.
By government regulations, etc. Okay. Peter brought up that we should repeal the income tax and go to a consumption tax. I don't agree with that either, Peter. And here's a simple reason why.
We gonna have
If our federal government and our state governments actually stayed within the confines of the constitutions, we wouldn't need an income tax.
We don't need it. We had the foundations of everything that we have today, and it was funded by private citizens, corporations, and communities. We don't need that.
Tariffs and excises is where the taxes were gathered in early America. Okay, it wasn't until the early 1900s that they decided that they needed an income tax.
1913, if I remember correctly.
Okay, so the early 1900s, they decided they needed an income tax. Here's what's really interesting. Once they started requiring an income tax, it wasn't too long that we were facing a major depression. The 1930s depression happened shortly afterwards. Okay, wealth redistribution does not work.
No.
And if you take income away from people, they're going to try to make up for it somehow. And if you continually try to take that income from these people to try to take away from the productive people, i.e., punish them for being productive and reward people for their incompetence, and that's what you are literally rewarding, then no wonder we have the issues that we're having It's just it's too hard to fathom. Okay, how many people just do not understand this? Okay, they don't understand that they don't want their money. What they really want to do is they don't want them to have their money. That's what this all amounts to. Okay, it doesn't have any basis on, well, we're going to spend it on paying for the poor. We're going to spend it on this. We're going to spend no. Okay, you don't want their money. The biggest reason why is you don't want them to have their money. That is what it's all about.
No,
Well-
not money. They want to take away opportunity. They want to take away freedom, the freedom to have choices, because that's what money really provides. Money
Mhm.
provides leverage. It gives you the ability to do other things. You don't have to necessarily comply. If I don't, this is the problem with universal basic income. I'm tied directly to the federal government at that point. I'm tied, my income, my livelihood, my ability to maintain a quality of life is directly tied to a government. And if I have one half or one party that is pushing the UBI that I am now dependent on, another part is trying to get rid of it, which one am I going to vote for? This is about power. This is about dependence. This is about slavery. This is economic slavery in action.
Well, it is.
And this
Okay.
is also why the government wanted the income tax in the first place, because
Mhm.
prior to the income tax, it was nearly impossible for your congressman and senator to bribe you with the money that he took from you.
Right.
Right.
You couldn't reallocate funds from which you do not have because we weren't able to print and produce. You weren't able to live beyond the means of what the taxpayer could provide with empty promises and bullshit rhetoric. So they had to figure out a way how to bribe the American people by taking from them what they earned and giving them back a pittance based on what they would vote for and what they would support. And what would they support? They would support the relinquishing of freedoms in exchange for monetary gain. So they allowed the American people at that time, like I said, it was voted on in 1909, passed in 1913. The American people, our leaders in our state level, gave the federal government the ability to bribe the American people based on who we would vote for. And they used it as a bellwether to control which way they were going to run American policy. And
Right.
the way they ran American policy from that time was to expand power into the federal government, take power from the states, take power from the people, and be able to run up bills that they knew no one would ever have to worry about paying. We've been in deficit and in debt since God knows when, and the people who ran up that debt in the 1920s and 30s are long dead and don't have to suffer the consequences for the promises they made or for the money they spent.
And here's another thing. Okay, again, there is a big push to make America a country where we are our brother's keeper. Okay, and we see it in red flag laws.
Mm-hmm.
Another way that we're seeing it is they are literally trying to push that everyone produce according to their means and only take according to their needs.
Yeah, that would be no one in America would have anything that we'd
Okay, I want everybody to understand what I just said there. They want everybody to produce according to their means,
Ability.
okay, or their ability. Who determines what your ability is? And who determines if you are producing according to your ability? How's that determined? How's that controlled? How's that enforced?
which is a good question.
The way they do it in China.
Well, yeah.
China.
Your overseer, your supervisor, your political leader, whatever you want to call them, would be the one who would determine that, I suppose. But the part that always gets me in that conversation is always the second part. Need.
Yeah. Now,
Need is a
that
very
was my
big
next thing.
word. Yeah, go ahead. I knew you were going there. Go ahead.
Okay. That was my next thing. Okay. First thing is we got to determine, is everybody producing according to their ability or according to their means? The next thing that we need to determine is, what are the people's needs? What are your needs? Okay. Who determines how much food you need? Who determines what type of clothing you need? Who determines what type of health care you need? Who determines what type of car you drive? Who determines what type of house you live in? Who determines exactly what your needs are? And then, do the needs of the elderly trump the needs of the young?
Well, not in Canada.
Does somebody's life-saving operation trump the need of somebody else's need for food? Okay, exactly where do we determine these needs? Who says what we need? Who determines that?
Why do you need food for 5 kids? Who the hell told you to have 5 kids?
Well, that I wouldn't even go with the.
You
Not
should
even
have only
like
had 2.
here's something, and love the motorcycles. The average, if you look at America, poverty, let's call it $12,000. It's actually higher. The poverty level is higher than 12,000, but let's go with $12,000 as poverty in America. Most people would say, yeah, that's absolutely poverty levels. Okay. That's 61% of the world doesn't make $12,000 a year. That is rich.
Right.
The poor.
And in some countries, yeah, that is rich.
Well, in most countries, even in the Middle East, the average person in the Middle East is making somewhere between $8,000 and $15,000 American. This is the entire Middle East filled with oil. Yeah, 5,000 to 8,000. Many of them live in towns that still don't have running water. So when you're saying need, don't they need infrastructure? Don't they need water? Don't they need hospitals? Don't they need electricity? Well, then Americans have too much. If we're going by need, and this is the part that they don't like to mention about this, it gives them the absolute ability to continue to lower the bar of your life and the quality of your life by saying, oh, but that person needs more. So I'm going to take what you have because you have too much.
Okay.
Oppressive.
Now, we've been talking about this as an American problem.
Well, you can apply it in other nations. Same
Okay.
thing in the United Kingdom.
You just
Germany.
opened the gateway to that this is a global problem.
Yeah.
I'm going to prove this even more. How many people have heard of the Club of Rome?
No.
Okay, Agent Black, you remember I said I was going to get to the Rockefellers? The Rockefellers were very instrumental in establishing the Club of Rome. Okay? Guess what the first article is? Rich nations need to commit to a new global financial pact. Over 25 economists and thought leaders are concerned that the summit for a new global financing pact, which takes place in Paris on the 22nd and 23rd of June, will not deliver its original ambition of increasing financial solidarity with low-income countries. Okay, so, Michael, you said you've never heard of the Club of Rome.
No.
Okay, Jan, have you ever heard of the Club of Rome? I'll give her a second to answer. Okay, the Club of Rome was established in 1968. Okay. And it was a think tank. Now, what this think tank was done, okay, and is founded by a guy from Italy. And the think tank was designed to come up with what would happen. Hold on a second. I'm trying to find something here.
No, it's already got me scared. It's 1968 and a think tank.
Yeah.
So it's academic. So it's a bunch of academics from 1968. Gee, what was happening on college campuses in 1968? Flower power, the hippie movement, lots of drugs. Gee, do I think they got the right idea, or were they just high?
In 1972, the Club of Rome commissioned MIT to do a study, and that study was published in 1972 called The Limits and Beyond. And basically, it was to determine what would happen to the economy and the world if we continued on the path that we were currently on. Now, I want you to think about what happened right around 1972.
Let's see. They were transitioning from global starvation to a model of global freezing in the climate change movement.
Okay, but on top of that, we also had
Vietnam,
the gas crisis. Okay. And this was the start of how we were going to be running out of all these resources. In the early 70s, or through the 70s and early 80s, we were going to lose all of our forests because loggers and the lumber industry were cutting down all the trees.
The Lorax.
Okay, so that's shortly after the study came out by MIT.
Mm-hmm.
Another part of this study, and I'm still checking into this, but at some point, the Club of Rome told the United States that it needed to cut its population by 2/3.
Global starvation again.
Okay. Otherwise, we were going to face catastrophic results if the United States did not cut its population by 2/3. And that's one of the biggest claims to fame of the Club of Rome, is they are all about population control. And if you, let me share this again.
Sounds like China.
Okay, this is the Limits and Beyond, 50 years from limits to growth. What did we learn and what's next? Okay, and you can find this all on the clubofrome.org. They are actually a very active organization. They are actually tied with the Davos Foundation and often host seminars and so forth at Davos.
So
they're also tied with the World Economic Forum, and others.
Yeah, WEC, WEF are directly connected to Davos, which means, they're all the same talking heads. What a shock that they want to kill the population.
Well, it's nothing new that you have groups like that are out there. They're all over the place. You could probably find 1,000 people that have an organization that are just like that, and it's always stemmed in some well-to-do college-affiliated group of people that all come back to the same root of money and family. It's all the same ideology. It's all the same shit over and over and over again with these groups. The only thing I want to know from their groups, how do they convince people to donate money to them Because whatever friggin' method they're using, we got to get somebody over there to give us some tips over here. Because this shit's getting expensive on our end of the show here.
Yeah,
It-
my
it is.
people with really good slogans and advertising.
Yeah,
Okay.
well,
So here's the impact hubs that they do: emerging new civilizations, planetary emergency, reframing economics, rethinking finance, youth leadership, and intergenerational dialogues.
That's the important one.
Okay. Yes, that is. Okay. International systems change compass. Making COP reform. COP process enabled delivery of real climate action. Food Forward Consortium. Planetary Emergency Plan provides set key policy levers to address cross-cutting challenges of climate change, biodiversity loss, human health, and well-being.
oh,
Drafted in
great.
partnership with the Potsdam Institute for Climate Impact Research. Planetary Emergency Partnership. Planetary Emergency Partnership strives to bridge silos and raise awareness for an integrated, systematic approach to address the convergence of climate, biodiversity, health tipping points initiated by the Club of Rome and the Potsdam Institute for Climate Impact Research, with initial partners WWF and the Nature for Climate.
That's not
Okay.
the World Wrestling Federation.
No,
by
it's
the
the World Wildlife Fund.
Wildlife Fund. Well,
It
why don't
brings
they
together more than 350 partners from across the climate, biodiversity, and health communities, including scientists, policymakers, business leaders, youth representatives, and non-governmental organizations.
So why don't they just rebadge their organization into how to bring America down and make them pay for it themselves? That's what this whole thing is like. And every one of these friggin' college campuses across America has got a group that's just like this. And we all have the same goal.
Yeah,
They
So
go to
this
America.
is where a lot of the climate change stuff is coming from. I guess these guys regularly advise NATO countries, along with, like I said, their ties with WHO, National Institutes of Health, and so on and so forth. Okay. And I don't think it was missteps, except for it was a slip when Vice President Harris let it known that they are trying to reduce the population.
Well,
And
she
they
just
have
had that
population
conversation.
control.
Yeah, well, she just had the conversation with John Kerry. I saw that earlier today on one of the news blips come across where they both acknowledged that they want to institute some sort of population control. You know, John Kerry came out with this too. This is nothing new. This is Georgia Guidestone bullshit over again. And like I said, the closer we get to the next election, and the more it looks like Trump might actually have enough of an overwhelming advantage that they can't rig it well enough to take it from him, and they can't convict him, by then you're going to see this shit coming out faster and more furious to try and get it all done with executive order, because they know that ain't going to pass the House or Senate.
Well, I mean, there's been conspiracy theories about shadow governments and so forth. And when you come across groups like the Club of Rome, the World Economic Forum, and others, those conspiracy theories aren't looking too
Territorial.
unbelievable.
No, these groups are based on when you keep an organization that is quasi secret. I mean, this isn't.
Yeah.
We're not talking about MIT or the New York Times publishing a paper or publishing the study. These are think tanks. These
Right.
are behind the scenes influencers. And so to mention, oh, this organization that no one's heard of, that's got all this money and these connections to organizations like WEC, the WEF, that they're planning to reduce the population. Well, that's a conspiracy theory. Okay. So if I say the Club of Roses, which has published a paper 50 years ago demanding a reduction of the population, currently works with the World Economic Forum, the World Economic Council, and the Davos Committee, and they are actively pursuing climate change and efforts to reduce population because of climate change. Is it still a conspiracy? It's a conspiracy because I don't know how to name the group. See, that's what they love to do. You don't know the name of the group? Oh, then you're a conspiracy. Yeah, but I know the details, and now that I can put a name to it, it's exactly the same thing, except now you can't call it a conspiracy. You can say, well, now you're misquoting these organizations. They love, again, it's twisting
Well,
the language.
well, these organizations all sound a lot prettier and magnanimous than the Skull and Bones Society or Bohemian Grove. You know, that's they sound less conspiratorial. You know, they sound more innocuous. They sound friendly. We're friendly. We just want the best for everybody. Yeah, we're nice people.
Yeah, they try and cover themselves in so many ways. Go ahead.
Copper, lead, primers, propellant. That's all I'm telling you. All I'm telling you. And the means in which to assemble and expel. Those are the things you need to invest in. Listen, it's getting on a little late. We're already at where the hell are we over here?
2 hours.
Yeah, we're already close to the 2-hour mark. I just wanted to touch on a couple of domestic things real quick here. Going back to the lead-in that I wrote for the show tonight. Sleepy Joe has authored yet another executive order giving the ATF some more power to try and expand gun control. And one of the new rules that they're instituting that they just released for public consumption is the new rule about background checks, trying to make them more universally applicable. Basically, it says if you have a gun and you want to sell it, you need to be a federally licensed firearms dealer. If, Michael, you're in New York, you have York County, you get a pistol permit. And I have a gun that I want to sell you, I have a pistol permit from New York. If I want to do a person-to-person transfer of any firearm, regardless of whether it's rifle, shotgun, pistol, semi-automatic, or whatever the case is, I'm not going to be allowed to do it without having to go through an FFL to make the transfer. But as far as being the transfer goes, I can't do that now. I could bring you to the FFL, say, hey, I have this Kimber. I want to sell it to you. You want to buy my Kimber? Yeah, well, it's person to person. You got a license. I got a license. It should be no problem. We've already both gone through background checks. We've already done everything we need to do. The only obligation we have is to register that firearm on our related pistol permits. That should be the only thing that we have to do according to their laws.
Right.
Now they want me to have an FFL if I do it, because now I'm in the business of selling firearms, and that's going to be regardless. So what they're trying to do is make every gun owner in America that wants to sell or buy a firearm from somebody, I wouldn't be allowed to gift a firearm to my wife or to my child without having to have a license in which to do it. And that's what they're trying to do. This is the new executive order that they've tried to that they posted just recently this week. It's now up for public consumption where we can weigh in, where naturally our concerns will be completely fucking ignored, like every other time that we have a public opinion period that they do that. But this is what they're trying to. They can't work around the recent decisions by the Supreme Court And in defiance of the EPA ruling that says that these bodies, regulatory agencies, are not legislative bodies and cannot write law, they're using this to circumvent the Supreme Court.
Well, yeah, it's turning every transaction into a business transaction, which they can regulate, which means, and it also creates another wall of burden because now you have to be an FFL, which means you
Right.
have to do
It's
paperwork,
another-
you have to pay the taxes, you have to comply. So it's multiple layers of deterrence.
Right. It's another layer of bureaucracy. Now, it's funny because if you want to get an FFL license, you have to jump through some pretty substantial hoops. And it's already a very just an expensive process. It's a long, arduous process with inspections, background checks, all the rest of the silly stuff. Imagine you have to go through all this stuff because you're an 85-year-old grandfather who wants to give your hunting rifle to your grandson so he can go out there and on his 21st birthday go out there and bag a buck during hunting season. You're not going to be able to do that. You have to now sell your gun to an FFL, who now you have to do transfer fees, all the rest of that crap and everything else. And then the FFL has now got to sell the gun to your grandson to do that. So now you have an additional layer of burden, an additional level of, that registry that they don't have, that they actually do, that they say that they don't, but we know that they do because it was proven in court. Well, that's another transaction that's on there. That's another thing. And sadly, this is going to be a 90-day waiting period where the people get to voice in on this thing, will be ignored, and they'll put it into practice, and there'll be another 6-year battle going in to try and get this removed, unless we actually have a leader, because remember, executive orders are not law.
Nope.
They can be signed out, and these rules that are made up can be erased with, the elimination of the previous executive order that enabled that regulation to take place. So hopefully, whomever it is that takes the mantle of the White House grows a set of balls when it comes to the Second Amendment and gets that straightened out. And speaking of the person who's most likely to take that, that's Donald Trump. This is the last point I'm going to make. How many people are on that indictment, that famous mugshot wall? Yeah, 18, right?
Yeah.
It turns out that now the district attorney in Georgia has just been found out that she has purposefully and willfully withholding exculpatory evidence that proves the innocence of at least a third of the people that have been indicted.
No.
Yes. Not only
Now,
video,
as I said before, Frank,
audio, all of it.
as I've said before, Frank, what good is a law if the people that you want to break those laws don't break them?
I don't what is the penalty for the district attorney in Georgia? What is going to be the penalty for the district
Nothing.
attorney for not only committing a civil rights violation by denying these people the proper due process that the Constitution guarantees them, but by criminally withholding evidence? This would be the same thing as evidence tampering. It's the same
She's
thing.
got immunity. She's got qualified immunity. She can't be sued.
Right. And what makes it worse, the governor, her boss, is presiding over the state. And the legislature in Georgia right now is considering not only contempt charges against the district attorney of Georgia, but impeachment charges. The governor says he will not entertain an impeachment trial.
Yeah, at the very worst, what's going to happen here?
He's a freaking Republican that Trump endorsed.
I
He
understand
wouldn't
that,
have
but
the job if Trump didn't endorse him.
it doesn't matter. He's looking at the public pressure. And the only thing that's going to happen right now is if there's enough of a brouhaha after 2 weeks, she will publicly resign in about 2 months. If this can last in the public eye for 2 weeks, which it will not, the story will be dead by Monday.
I want to know where all these activist judges are that constantly dismiss charges over a punctuation error on an arrest report. Where is the judge on this going to be? To look at this and say, you've indicted all of these people in this thing is pretty much a blanket indictment. This is the RICO Act without RICO. How what is it? Fruit of the spoiled tree.
Yeah.
Of the poison tree.
Yeah.
If you've already shown a willingness to hold evidence back on at least 6 of the people of the 18 that were indicted in this fiasco, what makes the judge think that anybody with a clear mind say, listen, if you're going to do this to one, God knows what we're going to still uncover with the rest. And we already have the evidence on the phone calls. We have the evidence on the phone calls to the board of electors in Georgia. What Trump actually said.
Doesn't matter.
Every legal pundit said it's exculpatory. The charges can't be filed.
Doesn't
Just
matter.
his position as president gives him the constitutional authority to do what he did.
Frank, you're assuming that the end result of all of this was an expectation of a guilty verdict. It isn't.
No,
They
it's
don't
to
expect-
tarnish him as best as it can. It's to keep him off the campaign trail. It's to paint the picture of him being convicted without being convicted.
Yes,
Because
they got
if
the
never
mugshot.
convict him, because if they never convict him, they can still say, well, they can't call him former disgraced President Donald Trump. They can't use that headline if he doesn't get convicted. But they'll be able
they
to say,
can. They can because he has a mugshot.
well, he has a
That's
mugshot.
what this is about.
Now they'll be able to turn around and go say, formerly indicted, disgraced, fat, orange, obnoxious President Trump.
No, they won't say formally. They won't say formally. They'll say Donald Trump,
Yeah, they won't even
who had been indicted on, and they will list all the charges, and then they'll go forward from there to reinforce he's been indicted, which means he must be guilty.
Well, who
And
was
they'll
it?
have a picture of the mugshot as the cutout in the story to go with it. That's what the whole point was. That's what this is all about.
I forgot the name of the politician who was indicted or something. He was accused for a whole bunch of stuff, and it turns out it was a whole bunch of bullshit.
There's a lot of them.
Well, it was like he was on front page news for months and months. Raymond Donovan was the guy's name. He goes, he was indicted on a bunch of bogus charges, by people who were literally trying to politically, suicide this guy.
Yeah.
Did everything they possibly could. They destroyed him in the media for months and months and months and months. Front page. His exoneration came out on the last page of the Sunday edition of the New York Times, where nobody was going to see it. It was buried underneath the cartoons and shit like that. And then he comes out and he says, all right, now that it's over, where do I go to get my reputation back?
You don't.
You destroyed the man.
Yes. That was the point.
Hollywood has been doing this for years. Everybody, have you ever heard the name Fatty Arbuckle?
Yep.
Fatty Arbuckle. He was the king of silent movie comedies back in the 1910s and 20s. This guy was he was our gang and Little Rascals before these guys came. This guy he was making the equivalent of millions and millions and millions of dollars for what he was doing. Somebody made one accusation against him that was completely false. It was a malicious allegation of sexual assault or something against this guy. And he was able to prove beyond any doubt where he had nothing to do with anything. It was somebody who just had a vendetta against him. But the media went after him and they buried this guy. This guy died. He went from being the top-rated Hollywood star at the time to dying penniless in an alleyway. And this is what our system has become. When you don't have a way of getting your stuff back after people take it from you because public opinion is so quick to make a decision and public memory is so short, you have no way of getting stuff back.
No.
You have no way, and we've gotten to the point in this country, especially politicians and the media, they use this as a tool where they don't care who they destroy or for what reason that they destroy them. They don't care about the consequences so long as they can expand their power. And the American people are willing accomplices with it because they play the game and they don't pay attention to the result.
Yeah,
And that's a
what's
big
it.
problem.
Too many people are not paying attention to what's really going on. Okay. They listen to the talking points that are blurted out by the media on both the left and the right side. Okay. I actually made a comment to your significant other, Frank, this week
Oh my God.
about how everybody, we are currently in the zombie apocalypse.
Oh, she mentioned that to me. She thought you meant it in a literal sense.
I do.
No, I mean like people coming back from the dead.
No, but we are currently in the zombie apocalypse. It's not like what we've been taught all of our lives on TV.
You're talking about in a political sense in terms of thinking.
Not just in a political sense. I mean, people are zombies. They care more. They are conditioned so that they only care about the latest TikTok or the latest memes or whatever. I mean, literally. Okay, and you have red zombies and you have blue zombies.
I would say they're enslaved to fad culture, to
No,
not just
they are
pop
zombies.
bad culture. Culture.
I don't care which side you look at. Okay. They are so fundamentally brain dead that they literally cannot think of anything else other than their party of preference talking points.
Yeah.
Okay. And their whole intent is to infect others with their political agendas.
It's
I
we're
get
living
what
in a
you're saying
dangerous
with it.
world. You want to know how dangerous the world is? Have either of you guys heard of the name Josh Sider?
Cider?
No.
Yes, Seiter. Josh Sider. This is just a stupid little story. But it's reflective of the society we live in. This is a guy who was a contestant on the show The Bachelorette some time ago. And apparently, if you wind up on one of these reality shows, you wind up gaining some sort of following or public notoriety or something like that.
So.
Somebody, I guess, because it's The Bachelorette, they always have these young, good-looking guys, these stud guys, the old, whatever. He developed quite a following on social media. Somebody hacked his social media while he was away on vacation, and he wasn't really monitoring the store, so to speak. And they went in and announced his untimely demise. They said he was dead.
Right.
His family monitors his social media. His friends monitor his social media. His work, employees, the people he works with, they all monitor it. Guy's got a big following. A couple of 100,000 people follow this guy. All get told he's dead. They go into an uproar all over social media. Oh my God, he's dead. Oh my God, he's dead. Oh my God, the guy's on vacation. The guy's on vacation. He comes back. He's got to spend thousands and thousands of dollars now to try and put his life back together because somebody maliciously came out and said he was dead. He's got to now prove, hey, no, I'm actually still here. This is how fragile it has gotten. It is how fragile it has gotten that a lie gets around the world before the truth gets its pants on.
Yep.
Nobody knew. I never heard of this guy. I don't know about this guy. And I'm sitting there one day, I'm scrolling through. I have the little window that slides over on Google. It gives you like the top headlines. And the top headline for like 3 days was Bachelorette contestant John Steiner dead at 39. And I'm just, oh, well, I don't know who he is. Feel bad. Sorry. That's never good news. And then like 3 days later, oops, we were wrong.
Okay. If you,
Somebody does that to a private citizen,
oh yeah,
private citizen, just as a joke, you don't know what could this guy's mother could have found out on Twitter that her son died, lost her shit, and decided to jump off the roof of a house because she couldn't deal with the idea that a kid is
Right.
dead. You could have killed somebody's mother. You could have caused somebody all kinds of irreparable harm because you wanted to pull a stupid friggin' stunt. And this is a private citizen. Politicians are doing this shit every day. The media does this shit every day to private citizens without so much as a thought of what would happen to that person. That kid who smiled in the American
Nick Sandman.
yeah. This kid's life got destroyed until he got paid handsomely.
Mhm.
But the media loves doing this crap to people. And this is people that they do it that people don't even have an agenda that they want to hurt them for. They just want to hurt them
Right.
because it's fun. Imagine when you disagree with them.
well,
we're not.
and here's the thing. Okay. You don't like my zombie analogy? Well,
Oh no,
we
I
could
just
look
thought
at
it
it
was
this way. We could look at it this way. We are rapidly becoming the Borg. If you fail to assimilate, you will die.
Yeah, that I agree with. That one, yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. And that's literally what we are running into.
Yeah. Which is a communist state.
Hmm. Okay. You will assimilate, you will comply, or you will die. And they will force compliance at the end of a gun.
Yeah. Did any of you guys ever read, what was it, by T.H. White? The Once and Future King.
No, I haven't read that one.
Okay. It's a classic. The Once and Future King. Well, not classic like Lord of the Rings, but it's a very popular book. The Once and Future King, T.H. White. And it's basically King Arthur being taught by Merlin when King Arthur's a teenager.
Mhm.
And the way that he does it is you would see Merlin transforms King Arthur into various animals and lets him live as those animals and those animal societies. And one of the most important ones is he transforms him into an ant. And so King Arthur now gets to see how the ants live, which is communism. It's an allegory for communism. They all think all the workers do as they're told. They're all being led by one leader, and there is no choice, no freedom, no individuality, no art, no expression. It's just do what you're told until you drop dead. And so this is how King Arthur learns about, and this is how he comes to the right versus might. It's the way he learns about how to rule as the future king. It's really interesting, but that's exactly what you're describing here. These are the ants that are found in T.H. White's book. This is communism. This is a unimind. This is the death of individuality, otherwise known as diversity, equity, and inclusion. This is the equity chain.
Mm-hmm. And Agent Black says, I'm praying for the zombie apocalypse. The current alternative is 10 times worse.
Yeah, zombies were pretty straightforward.
Well, there's a comment I would make about the remedy,
YouTube. Censors.
but I can't. I can't make the remedy. All I can tell you is that I like the way they handle it in The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
Listen, everything can be rolled up into one thing as far as when it comes to, we know the motivations of politics. We know the motivations of politicians. We know those. Okay. We know the motivation of the media and celebrity and entertainment. It's the motivations of people that are really the biggest problem. And
Exactly.
and I'm seeing the motivations. I peruse 99% of the content I follow on Instagram is Second Amendment related content. All right, because I'm trying to stay on top of as much stuff as I can. And you'll scroll through a lot of the gun videos that are on there. Now it's like, if you show a gun on Instagram, your content is deleted, eliminated, moderated, whatever. You actually should have pictures of scenes somebody will upload from a movie where people are like, cops got a gun in his hand. They blur the gun because you can't show a gun. My content is constantly getting taken down off Instagram. And it's insane, but every so often I get a video pops up. It's another one of these she spent too much time in the gym for a 65-year-old woman and way too much time at the tanning salon trying to do some dance trend because she wants to be relevant.
Yeah.
Showing every goddamn thing that she could show.
And that's why I'm saying that we are in the zombie apocalypse.
Right. You see in all this, we saw it in COVID. While they were complaining about all the people that were dying, but you didn't have the hospitals were understaffed, but you could get 50 nurses to stand outside the friggin' the hospital in the parking lot doing a friggin' a TikTok dance. You can see all of this bullshit. There is and I'm seeing, and what's worse, you see these young girls. If you have a girl that rates any higher on what an average guy would consider a 5, every one of these, you see them on TikTok doing all of these stupid things, and there's a link to their OnlyFans account.
Mm-hmm.
There is no friggin' dignity anymore. People are not dignified. They have no concept of consequence. No consequence at all of what the future may bring and how this stuff could come back to them. They think about the here and now and not the what will be. They have no thought of tomorrow, and they lose complete sight of the past. They lose complete sight of the past.
Because
and everything we see the people doing now, if it's not entertaining, they don't want nothing about it.
Right.
If it's not destructive, they don't want nothing to do with it. If it's not something that's going to generate profit for themselves, they don't want to indulge in it. And it's so disgusting because we went from one of the greatest lines in political history was, think not of what your country can do for you, but what you could do for your country.
Mm-hmm.
That was not a call for you to pay your fair share in taxes. It was for what could you contribute to your nation to make it a better place without you expecting the government to give you a handout. That's what JFK spoke about. He was talking about what could you do as an individual to make America better, to make the world better. And now nobody does a damn thing but what they want to do for themselves, and it doesn't matter who they destroy on the way, and that includes themselves.
Yeah.
And it is so sickening to see this. And I don't know. I mean, I look back, I got a 20+ year career in building, and I know that long after I'm dead, which I hope is not for a long time, I'll be able to look up or look down for wherever the hell the big guy decides he wants to put me. And I'll be able to look back and see the things that I created and see the things that I left behind and be able to look back 200 years from now, and God willing, some of the things that I did will still be there and say, wow, I did that. I built something. There's a little bit of my legacy there. There's something that people were able to use, to enjoy, to live in, that sheltered them, provided them peace and comfort, and were able to do something. And I did it for a very meager reward at the time, but my legacy will live on. What legacy are these young people in America building for themselves today? What are you building? What are you building? That money is short money, kids. It's short money. You're going to piss through it before you know what happens. And I guarantee you understands the tax implications behind it. And you're going to pay a price for it too there. But at some point in your life, you're going to be called to question about your dignity and what harm you've done, not only to yourself, but to others. Because believe me, 20 years from now, when your kid stumbles across your OnlyFans account because the kids in his classroom say, hey, this naked person over there looks a lot like your mom, you're going to have to explain that shit.
Well, our morality has been completely flipped upside down.
Or
Okay.
eliminated.
We believe that it is good to take from others and give. Okay. We believe that we should feel ashamed because we produced. Okay. We are to be ashamed because we are successful. I'm sorry. The stuff that we should be ashamed of, we aren't. Okay. We celebrate it today. And the stuff that we should be celebrating, we are told that we need to be ashamed of.
Yeah.
It's a bizarre world. It's a bizarre world that we live in.
Absolutely.
When I was on Dan's show last week, he played a clip about the transgender community. This is somebody interviewing some girl about all the hate that's out there. And at the end of the interview, she said something about, well, most of the hate is probably self-generated. You know, she actually worked through the logic during the course of responding to the questions being asked, where she broke it down to her last alternative was, well, yeah, it's a lot of this hate that I'm getting is self-generated, you know, meaning that she's hating herself. And I told Dan, I said, I'm gonna leave you guys with this because I'm exhausted, and I had my spinal shots today, and I'm really in a lot of pain.
We're going to go ahead and shut it down. We're at 2.5 hours, damn near.
Well,
So.
I just want to make this point. When I was a kid, and my mom was talking to me once about, you know, relationships and stuff like that. You know, as any parent does, they talk to their kids about what the future is going to be. My mother said when we were talking about love, and she said, you cannot give to someone else what you don't have for yourself. If you don't if you do not have love for yourself, you can't give it to someone else. And I'm finding that when I heard that girl make that statement, that so much of the hate that she was having was self-generated, is because she never learned to love the person that God made her. She could only despise it. And because that, she takes that hate that she has for herself, transfers it to other people so she can feel better, thinking that other people must hate her too. And if you don't have love for yourself, you can't have love for your fellow man, your fellow woman, your fellow citizen. You cannot have love for your country. You have to learn to respect yourself, respect where you want to go, respect your freedom, respect your dignity, because if you can't respect it in yourself, you'll never be able to respect it in the people around you. And you will wind up wanting from them things you're not willing to give up yourself. And that's a big part of why we're in the shape that we're in, because people are making demands of others that they don't sacrifice themselves. And maybe if people took a little time more reflecting upon who they are and what they actually believe, they might see the world's not really a fishbowl. You got to get out and swim. So I'm going to sign off. Everybody in the audience tonight, really appreciate you guys coming in tonight. You guys are great. We always love the support. We're gonna do it again next week. I was gonna do a little giveaway tonight, but unfortunately, I'm not gonna be able to do it tonight because the product I was gonna give away did not get here on time today. But we're gonna do it next week. So, but we know who was here. So, And from now on, we're going to try and do giveaways. Only people who show up in the comment section are going to be eligible.
That works.
Only
Yep,
people who show up.
I agree.
That works.
Yeah, because I'm not giving away shit for free that I got to buy. So, but with that, I'm going to sign off tonight. This is the Fat Shady, Frank Johnson. Leave you with my call off. You guys be safe and shoot straight. I'm going to leave it to Michael and Michael, the M&Ms over here, to bring us out for the night. You guys, good night. God bless you. God bless America. And, we'll catch you guys here next week. Same bat time, same bat channel.
All right.
All right, guys. Have a great night.
You too.
Thank you, Frank. Okay, with that, we're going to go ahead and start shutting this down.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest things that we pretty much stressed all the way throughout this episode, and we stress through most of our episodes, is it doesn't have to be this way. All it takes is for us to start coming together as we the people. And if you don't want to take action, then you need to support those that do. And one of the biggest ways that you can support one organization that is leading the fight in this is to become a member of the Liberty First Foundation. Okay, you can do that through our website. I'm going to post the link here. Okay, and you can get access to exclusive contents. We are a little behind on that, but we will be starting some members only events here real quick. We're also going to have some members only giveaways as a part of being a member. One of our first giveaways is the first 250 members that sign up for the Liberty First Foundation will be eligible to win a custom engraved why am I drawing a blank?
On the Henry rifle?
Henry. That's what I was trying to remember. A custom engraved Liberty First Edition Henry Golden Boy Lever Action 22 rifle. Other things, like I said, that you would get. But on top of that, here's what really happens. When you support the Liberty First Foundation, it allows us to expand our fight for restoring the Constitution and restoring this country back to its constitutional roots. And honestly, the three of us, and even the 3, 4, 5 people in the chat, that's not enough. Okay, we need everybody to start working towards that. And I don't care if you're left or right. If you work from a constitutional foundation, there is room for both sides. But when you try to obstruct the Constitution, try to shred the Constitution and so forth, then you start having issues. That's where you start having things where no side wins. Neither side wins. Okay? So we need to get back to that basis. And we are one of the organizations, if you don't like us and you don't agree with our stance and our viewpoints, there are countless others. The 10th Amendment Foundation, the Constitutional Coalition, and several others out there that are promoting. The Cato Institute comes to mind. Getting us back to our true constitutional base. And honestly, if you don't have a solid foundation, you can't have a solid country.
True.
With that, I want to say good night. I want to thank you, Michael. Go ahead and let them know where they can find you.
They can find me on No Sound Bites Allowed. No Sound Bites Allowed. That's with an I. I'm on YouTube, Facebook, Rumble, BitChute, Odyssey, almost any and all of the social media out there. On 9/11, we're going to be having a special event. You're going to like this, Mike. I'm going to be doing an event with 4 Marines. It's going to be an all-Marine panel talking about 9/11. It should be quite interesting.
Yeah, it should be.
Yeah. It'll be real. And it's interesting because we also covered the entire spectrum, far right, far left, libertarian, and independent. So we're covering
Mhm.
all of the different political views out there. Talking, but the commonality is all Americans, all Marines, talking about it from our different age groups too, talking about this. But every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I do a live stream, usually somewhere between 2.5 to 6 hours long, talking about various issues and going into the history of them, so that the public can be better informed. And then every Friday, I'm here. Every Friday at 9 p.m.
Yep,
because this is important.
it is. Okay, and I regret missing last week, but I was a little under the weather. I was actually in pretty rough shape last Friday night, but it is important. And what we're doing here is not to create a more conservative country, not to create anything. It is to save our country, is literally what it is about. Okay, and with that, I'm going to say good night. Again, join us every Friday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. You can find us on Facebook and YouTube, and we will see you next week. Thank you, everybody.